So last time we talked, you talked about how you came to an understanding of predestination, how that brought challenges at the Baptist dispensational church that you were going along to because of the people who God used to bring you to an understanding of the truth. What was the steps then from that Baptist dispensational church? Was it an immediate step into the Reformed understanding, or were there further steps that you took to get to the place you're in today?
Well, as I was wrestling with predestination, there was an elder in that Baptist church who could see that I was having struggles with that. And I didn't know it at the time. Virtually everybody in that congregation had attended Bob Jones University. And this elder had married the daughter of the senior pastor. And I didn't know it at the time, but he was a Calvinist. The only one in the congregation. And looking back on it, I think that he probably really had a struggle being the only one there.
Married to the pastor's daughter, though.
That's right.
Emotional tie.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right. After a Wednesday midweek Bible prayer meeting that I attended, I was getting up to go, and he came up to me and he handed me a book. And he said, when God reveals something true to you, you will end up loving it. And because he was hearing my conversations about, not liking the idea of predestination. And he gave me this book.
And that was a beautiful way to put it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When God reveals something to you,
you'll love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was absolutely right. So I went home and looked at the book, and it was The Reformed Doctrine of Predestination by Lorraine Bettner. And I started reading that, read Total Depravity, and was immediately, though I didn't know the rest of the points coming, immediately knew that they all came together. If you understand Total Depravity, you got the whole system.
Yeah.
That was a really, really important book for me. And within that book, I believe somewhere in there, the word Presbyterian was mentioned. And so then thinking back about what this elder was saying in that church class, that Sunday school class, about Presbyterians believe this, and I thought I need to maybe find a Presbyterian church. I asked the professor again at the school, about a Presbyterian church. Now, he had been connected to the RP church in Phoenix, but he was thinking more of where I was living in the area. And he first said, well, maybe you should consider this other book. And he gave me a study guide to Westminster Confession, G.I. Williamson's study guide to Westminster Confession. And I read through that book and thought, yes, I'm convinced now I do need to find a Presbyterian church. And so I just looked for one, and one that was nearby was a Presbyterian USA, but I didn't end up going there. I asked the professor again about if he knew of any good Presbyterian church that I should go to, and he said, yeah, there's one that's by your house, and it was called Calvin PCA. It's a PCA church. And so I decided that I would go there. I bought another copy of J.I. Williamson's study guide of the Westminster Confession, gift wrapped it, and went back to the, what do you call the not the senior pastor, the next pastor?
Assistant pastor?
Associate,
yeah.
Who was the man who baptized me.
Right.
And after a church service, I said, I'm going to be starting to attend another church, and this is the reason why. And he took the book, and I remember he looked at me and he said, I thought for a number of months now that you would be the kind of person that would be going to a church like that. And so...
It was the kind of person, it's not that you came to a greater understanding.
That's right. And I was the kind of person because I was always asking questions. And
correct.
This, by the way, for me, I should say, it's a double-edged sword. Blessing and curse. Not having any Christian background was a great liability in terms of life habit, past sins, wrestling with that, regret, guilt, all that, terrible.
Mm-hmm.
When I became a Christian, I was fascinated by Christian living, Christian homes. I always wanted to be around Christian families to see what living actually really is.
Yes.
And I can remember being so angry at Christian young people my age who wanted to have a time out in the world. And I would just be saying, you have no idea what you're asking for. Why would you ever want to experience something that if you're a real Christian, you will end up hating and regretting and wanting to get it out of your mind for the rest of your life? Why do you want to do that? But they didn't understand that. So that was terrible, just in terms of life habit, things that, just organization. And
do you think there was almost, not use the word expectation, but there must have been some culture of thought that said it's okay for a young person to go and test themselves within their own community? I mean, it's almost like
I think that there may be in many, I don't know, churches or denominations, that kind of thing, that it's almost expected.
Yeah.
I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah. But you're speaking to it very clearly from the fact of someone who'd been there saying, I've come to light and truth and joy and happiness. Why, if you're experiencing that, would you want to get back into where I've come from?
Exactly. They just did not understand. They didn't understand the privilege that they had of being raised with rules and restrictions.
I think that's something we need to tell our young people, our children. I mean, I try to, in a simple, clear way, to say to young people in the congregation, the tremendous privileges you have. Yeah, there's responsibility that comes from that, there's obligations, but there's a privilege, it's a joyful privilege, and delight in what you have, rather than feeling as though you're burdened by it and overwhelmed by it.
Yeah, no, that is so true. It's so true. It's so hard to convey that to people, and of course Satan will always be enticing people to say, I remember asking my mom after I was converted, though, I said, why didn't you put any regulations on me? Because I had none. I mean, all through even high school, no curfew or whatever, I could come in at any time I wanted, I could go at any time I wanted. And my mom said to me, oh, your father and I specifically, deliberately decided to do that with you because we always wanted you to be self-governed and to make your own decisions for yourself and determine the way you were going to go. And so I just thought, you know what, that just caused a lot of kids need boundaries in any direction. Anyway,
keep the baggage away.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, the point of that is that was the liability of not growing up in a Christian home, just all the sins on it. The great blessing in it is I was a blank slate.
Correct.
I didn't have to undo any poor theology or any bad, poor practice or anything. So to me, every issue of Christian theology and Christian living was simply, what does the Bible say? And I could lay out, okay, here's what the Baptists teach, here's what Presbyterians teach, here's this, here's that. And I would just look at the arguments on both sides, wrestle through, look at what the scripture says, and then I could say, well, I'm going with this one because this is what the Bible teaches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You weren't fighting against
we didn't have to fight against anything. So it just kind of led me to these different areas. So that first step was to this Calvin PCA church. And the first day I wandered into that church and listened to a sermon, which was very structured and it was refreshing because it had a lot of content in it. And I thought, well, this is really nice. And then afterwards I went out into the foyer, I guess is what it's called, and this elder came up to me and he said, my name is Elder such and such, and I noticed you're visiting. I was wondering if you had any questions. And so I said, well, I am curious, have you ever heard of something called the Westminster Confession? And he said, heard of it, that's our creed. And really, I felt the blood drain out of me. I thought I was going to pass out of faint. because in my reading of it, it just seemed like this was something that, you know, no one really knows anymore, and it's
historical entity.
that's right. And to say that he actively, this is our creed, and I was like, wow. So I started attending Calvin PCA, and very early on, I told them, you know, I'm well, even when I was in the Baptist church, I had said I want to become a minister, and they were thinking, you know, go to Bob Jones and, you know, that kind of thing. So
that was it. Well, next time we'll pick up what the next stage was in that transition from Calvin PCA into the ministry.
okay.
Thanks again.
Yep.
Thank you.